Here's the first story we got from the Washington Post. Ukraine denies Kremlin's claim of drone assassination attempt on Putin. Now, we have this video that was posted by the Times on YouTube. I'm going to play the clip for you. I don't think there's any audio. And you just see a weird little object fly in and then blow up. And that's it. So it exploded over the building. And I guess what happened was they destroyed it. Before, I mean, you're not going to get a drone into the Kremlin. I mean, they've got air defenses. According to the Washington Post, they say Russia on Wednesday accused Ukraine of staging a drone attack intended to kill Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin, an incendiary allegation that was forcefully denied by Ukrainian officials, some of whom warned it could be a pretext for Russia to escalate the war. It is. It absolutely is. Whether or not it's a false flag, whether or not Ukraine actually did it, there's video. They claimed it happened, and that's what you're going to see. Some kind of escalation, some kind of justification. Perhaps it's Vladimir Putin trying to rally public support in his country for the ongoing war, or because he wants to turn the heat up and use more advanced weapons or something like that, and he needs some kind of justification. Or maybe Ukraine just tried to do it. Maybe it could be an insurgent faction. It could be a group of Ukraine. Who knows? But I wouldn't put it past them. I do kind of think this was crude and poorly done. So it's probably, I don't know, I'd assume more was a false flag.
Yeah, at first I heard there were 2 drones and that they were brought down by Russian countermeasures. And so that was the drone actually coming down as a result of the Russian interference. So that, but I don't know if that was true or not either. I mean,
that's
it's all
what the
fog
Kremlin
of war.
said. They released a statement saying it was 2 unmanned aerial
2 drones
apparatuses. And they also said, we have May 9th, which is our Victory Day. We celebrate the end, or when Germany fell to the Soviet Union. And so this is lining up on sort of to be an attack on our national pride, basically.
This is basically the White House. It's like the Russian version of the White House. The Washington Post says it's the working residence of Vladimir Putin.
But to fly a drone, I mean, the explosion was very small compared to the building. Just to aim a thing into the top of the Kremlin, I don't see how that would get Putin. Maybe they knew where they were headed and they were trying to go right into his office.
I mean, they said Putin wasn't even there. They said that
he wasn't even there.
Mm-hmm,
what kind of drone was it is the question. Was it a small, commercial consumer drone or something? Or was it, an American military style Reaper or whatever?
Was it loaded with explosives, or was that just the machine itself being blown apart?
Yo, I warned about this 10 years ago. This is crazy to see happen. I was doing research in 2011 on drone stuff, and when it was about 2014, I think, I actually went to the the Northwestern Drone Coalition, a group of universities were working with the government and news organizations to figure out what are we doing about this new technology. And when I went and met with these university people, I outright told them your biggest concern is probably security, because someone's going to take one of these things, they're going to arm it, and they're going to fly it straight into a city, and there is nothing you can do at that point. At that point, your question is, where does it blow up? Not if it will.
And swarm technology is the next level.
Right. Now we're seeing in Ukraine these small commercial style drones and military ones, but that are small, carrying explosives and payloads, swarming and just peppering targets and stuff like that.
You'll need like a laser defense system where like there's a pylon that if there's like 10,000 drones all coming, that the thing will like spark out 10,000 shocks and hit them all at once and knock them all down.
I don't think
you can't stop them individually.
It's not going to be able to move fast enough. If they did some kind of laser defense system, I think that could work. So you would need a high powered laser, but it's not going to be able to, well, it could theoretically move fast enough, but to transfer enough energy from the laser to the drone to disable it might take more than just a second.
You would need huge amounts of energy for that.
It would point at it, hold for about a second, and probably take it out of the sky instantly, scramble it up, heat it up, overheat it. But if there's 10,000 of these drones or even a few hundred of them, this laser is not going to be able to stop all of them.
What vibe did you get, James, about this whole thing?
There's so much that we don't know, and our primary source of information about it, we have to remember, is the Kremlin. Right? So even the video itself, it's intriguing to me that we're being allowed to see it. Why would the Russians release video of what they're claiming was almost a successful attack on the Kremlin? Right?
It benefits them.
Well, maybe. So be that as it may, first, our only source of information is a very unreliable one, okay? As to the question of whether this could be the pretext for an escalation, whether it was a false flag or a genuine Ukrainian attack, the Russians haven't shown throughout this entire conflict that they need any particular pretext to escalate. the war itself is an enormous escalation, right? There was no conflict. So I don't think they particularly need any staged events or even a real event to claim as a justification for escalation. And the fact is, too, that the Russian military throughout this conflict has been so shockingly ineffective that I'm not sure that what escalations they can even successfully mount beyond the obvious one that we all worry about, which is the introduction of some kind of nuclear, conventional or tactical or genuine nuke-sized nuclear escalation. I don't think they're going to go there. And so the one thing I would say about this is it brings up this posture of the United States throughout this conflict, which is that we are not encouraging or enabling the Ukrainian armed forces to launch attacks inside Crimea or Russia itself. And the question is, why not? Wouldn't the war be over much more swiftly if Vladimir Putin and the ruling class in Russia were made to pay those kinds of prices, the very prices the Ukrainians themselves are paying?
They want to avoid total war. They're seeking a limited war in eastern Ukraine. They don't want Putin to get killed. They don't want Zelensky to get killed because then it's Joe Biden's on the line. So I honestly think this is a way for the Russians to establish grievances in the global community and be like, see, now we have a little bit of justification if we do decide to go after Zelensky. So Zelensky, you better run. And he's like in Finland right now or something, and he decided to stay. I think he's up in some Nordic country.
I just want to say, if this really was a false flag, it is the saddest and most pathetic we've seen. I mean, you've got the burning of the Reichstag, which many people believe was a false flag to justify expansion of war and things like that. And that was literally burning the whole thing to the ground. This is like a little explosion overhead that didn't do much damage at all, and Putin wasn't even there. So I'm not sure what they get out of this, really. And so, some people I already see in the super chat are pointing out that there's no way those drones flew 400, 500 kilometers to make it there. So what is this?
Are they like high altitude reconnaissance drones, maybe? They just got brought down by some sort of magnetic.
We're going to have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hannah Claire. We're just going to have to acclimate ourselves to the reality that we're not going to learn all that we would wish to learn about this event. But just to your point before about the reason why the U.S. is just not encouraging or enabling Ukrainian armed forces to strike inside Russian territory is because they fear World War III. But it just seems to me you're already in a kind of a proxy war to begin with, right? And it's a strange way to pursue war making if your every decision is going to be governed by fear of the opponent escalating the conflict.
Aren't they enabling? Isn't the U.S. enabling by funding this war, though? I mean, we send materials and supplies to Ukraine.
We are the war.
So we are saying, oh, we're not enabling it, but we are.
Well, in other words, I don't know whether the particular weapon systems that we've been supplying would enable the Ukrainian armed forces to do damage inside territorial Russia. Probably there's a suite of weapon systems we could supply that would guarantee the ability of the Ukrainians to pursue war on Russian targets. But again,
it's sort of an ambiguous line. We're saying we're not sure it could, but they theoretically could.
But they don't need.
I agree with you.
They don't need full-scale warfare weapons from us to engage in conflict on Russian territory, in Russian territory. In fact, that would probably be the least effective thing to do. The most effective thing to do is what that lady did when she brought the statue to that blogger and blew him up. Like insurgency style, targeted guerrilla warfare, disrupting the economy. I mean, they're not going to, there's nothing they're going to have that's going to be able to do enough damage to these areas.
And if they did, open strike on a Russian city would be a total annihilation of every Ukrainian major city by the Russian Air Force. It would just overnight, it would just be total war. The entire country would be leveled to the ground if they started attacking Russian cities.
This is the crazy thing to me about this whole thing. The restraint you see in war makes no sense. Like Ukraine could easily have more of these assassinations with the statue. You guys know about that story?
It's the first I've heard of it.
For those that don't know, there was this. I guess he was a vlogger. He was a guy who would he would propagandize in favor of Russia, and he was given a bust of himself, and it exploded, killing him and injuring several others. These are the kinds of attacks taking out key targets that are easier and more effective in terms of destabilizing,
And they
country.
instill terror, right? Because
exactly.
the populace wants to know, well, where's the next place that could be stricken?
But what you were saying, Ian, was that if Ukrainians did use U.S. granted or NATO granted weapons of war on a Russian city, Russia would retaliate with full-scale airstrikes. My question is, why don't they do it now?
Because they want to own the country. I don't think I think they really want trade out of this. They want to be a richer country after this war is over than before it started. So they're trying to take Eastern Ukraine east to the Donbass, run those freeways down to Crimea, and just start shipping steel out into the Mediterranean.
And I do want to stress there are U.S. boots on the ground. That was confirmed in the leaks that came out a while ago. Plus, there's several other European countries that have boots on the ground.
And Hannah Claire's point is true, which is, what distinction are you really making when, on the one hand, you're saying, well, we are proceeding very carefully up each step up the escalatory ladder so as not to trigger an unwelcome escalation from Mr. Putin, but 5 minutes later in the same news conference, you're saying the weapons and the training that we're providing are killing Russian soldiers, are causing all these extraordinary casualties that the Russians are absorbing. So in essence, you're boasting about the very thing that you're claiming not to be doing.
But realistically, I think, utilitarianly, they care a lot less about losing humans than they do about losing infrastructure. You blow up buildings, that's going to piss them off a lot more than killing a bunch of dudes.
But again,
overpopulation.
At what point should the entire Western alliance be governed by fear of whether this particular leader is going to go nuclear? Does he not also subscribe to MAD, to mutually assured destruction, which governed relations between the U.S. and the Soviet Union for 50 years?
I think that's fake.
What's fake?
Mutually assured destruction, in my opinion, is completely overhyped and confused by the average person. Because people tend to simplify things and because their views are based off of pop culture and not actual history, they think things like, gunshots, they don't know what they really sound like. They think, it's like that movie Last Action Hero. Remember that with Arnold
Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis.
He shoots the taxi in the real.
No, that's True Lies.
He lives in the movie, but then he comes to the real world and he shoots the car, but nothing happens. Because in movies, you shoot a car, it explodes for no reason. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.